Are there hidden populations of parrots living in the United States? The answer is yes, and I'm going to tell you what they are, where you can find them, and share some of our experiences where we've gone out and found these parrots. But I want to give you a little history first, because we actually have a parrot that was native to the United States that lived in a lot of the US that you unfortunately cannot find anymore because it is extinct, and that is the Carolina parakeet. So historically, the United States did have a native parrot, technically two, depending on how specific you want to be, but it was called the Carolina parakeet. And unfortunately, habitat loss, hunting, they think maybe disease could have played a role, but they're no longer here and are extinct. There was also another species called the thick-billed parrot that was found in Mexico, and it went into the US a little bit, but their populations moved back, probably because of habitat loss, into Mexico, so you can no longer find them reliably in the United States. So unfortunately, we lost our native parrot, the Carolina parakeet, and kind of we lost the thick-billed too. But we do have new parrots that you can find. Unfortunately, it's because of escaped birds or birds released from the pet trade. So these are non-native species, but they have established themselves. So now you can find them living in the United States. So we're gonna cover 5 different species and talk about some other ones too, as well as talk about the main parrot hubs where you can find the most parrots. So our first bird is the monk parakeet. And this is one of the most widely distributed parrots that you can now find in the United States. And that's because they're really hardy in cold environments. They can live further north than some of our other parrot species. They're green and they have some gray on them, and they love to hang out in power plants. So by me, where I live in Wisconsin, we normally go south into Illinois because you can find them around the Chicago area. And oftentimes they're in big cities and they make these massive stick nests on power plants. So power companies don't like them doing this because they can cause electrical fires. Sometimes they will take those down, but it's a really noisy experience seeing parrots, and it feels really trippy. You kind of have to check yourself. You're like, am I in the tropics now? Am I really in Chicago? But they can be found in a lot of the big city areas. So this is one of the parrots to look out for. You'll probably hear them before you see them. They're also known as Quaker parrots. And in the pet trade, they come in a blue mutation as well. So you can sometimes see the blue ones in the pet trade. Haven't seen any out in the wild, but it doesn't mean they're not there. That's a really interesting parrot to look for. Here is a little clip of when we went to see monk parakeets in the wild.
I feel like these parrots are different than a lot of other bird species because you can really see the social communication that they have. It seems very rare that you see one alone. They're always in pairs or multiples, and they like to hang out by the nest and fix it up with adding new sticks and constantly chatter at each other.
It's weird because you can hear the hum of the wires too, as well as all this parrot chatter, and it's just kind of by this bike trail. Kind of a weird contrast. Our next parrot on the list is the red-crowned Amazon. They're larger, they do have red on the crown, and a hot spot for them is South Texas, the Rio Grande Valley. That's a really good spot to find these red crowns, as well as Los Angeles area. And that's actually where I saw my first wild parrots. And I was staying with my friend in California. We were actually a little further north, but was still in California. And she said, yeah, sometimes you see parrots outside. And I was like, what? How can you see parrots? It's California. And sure enough, the next morning there was one outside her house. And that's when I learned all about these parrots. But Los Angeles area is a big hub for red-crowned Amazons. So is South Texas. You can find a couple in Florida as well, but those are the 2 main spots. And they do this thing where they come in to roost at night. So you can find these hot spots where they are, and they make so much noise. And sometimes there's other species of parrots mixed in as well, such as yellow-headed, or lilac-crowned, or red lord. So sometimes you do get mixed birds in these flocks, but they make so much noise. They come in to roost at night, they go into the trees where they're gonna stay, and then they become quiet, and you would never know that they were even there in the first place. So it is a huge spectacle seeing these groups of parrots come in to roost.
It's the parrot-pocalypse! This is the experience we wanted with the parrots, I would say.
The experience we needed.
The parrots are still behind us, but it's starting to get a little too dark to see. Yeah, they all came in like a swarm, and we were able to finally get some better views, so I'm really glad we came back and got our fulfilling Brownsville parrot experience.
The next one on our list is the Nande parakeet, and they can be found in Florida as well as Los Angeles. Sometimes you'll find them in other areas too, but those are the main spots. And they have a darker face, a lot of green, a little bit of red, and some really nice blue feathers if you get to see them closely. And we went to try to find them in Florida, and it was actually a little more difficult than we thought because they would kind of just fly by. They wouldn't really hang out in a specific area, but sometimes they will come to feeders, they will sit for a while and actually give you some really good views. So that's another one that you can look for. We found it a little harder to find than the others, but it's kind of hit or miss with these parrots. You'll hear them flying over and then they'll be gone. Sometimes you'll hear them and you're able to track them down. So the experience you have might be different from person to person when you're going out and looking for these different species.
Got Nande parakeet. We were about to go into this market and I heard parrots, and then we saw 4 Nande parakeets flying overhead. They landed really briefly on these wires, but we technically got them. We got Nande parakeet. I got some videos of them on the wires and them flying away, but I think we're gonna go someplace where we maybe can get some more looks at them.
Next parrot on the list is the rosy-faced lovebird. These are absolutely adorable parrots, and the hub to find them is actually in the Phoenix, Arizona area. They're very equipped to live in those hot climates, so we actually went to a park where they were just hanging out, getting a drink from some of the fountains, sitting on the buildings, sitting in the palms. They have that rosy color on the face, otherwise they're green, bluish, grays, really colorful birds and really interesting to see, but it feels so out of place. I've also seen images of them nesting in saguaro cacti, which is a really cool adaptation of them being able to live in those desert habitats. So they've kind of made Phoenix and Arizona their home. So if you want to see a rosy-faced lovebird in the wild, this is definitely the region that you're going to want to go to. They're not as easy to find in the other areas, or they're totally absent, so Phoenix in this area is your best bet if you want to see rosy-faced lovebirds.
Got 'em.
Epic parrot sighting.
Every time I see urban parrots, it's just like one of the most exciting things for some reason. The lovebirds were first documented here in about the 1980s, and then they've been able to breed successfully, and now they have this population, which is why you're able to find them in the urban and non-urban areas of Phoenix, but in the city it's mostly those urban areas, just like this park.
Next up we have the yellow chevron parakeet. They're mostly green with a little yellow on the wing, and they can be found in Florida and Los Angeles most reliably. So you might be noticing a trend. Some of our parrot hubs are Florida, tons of different species that you can find in Florida, as well as Los Angeles, and then South Texas is a really big one too. So you have the monk parakeets that are kind of spread out. You have the rosy-faced lovebirds that are in the Phoenix area, and then you have our parrot hubs that are home to a lot of these different species. So if you're interested in seeing a bunch of different kinds of parrots, I would recommend Los Angeles, South Texas, or South Florida as your options. But the yellow chevron kind of behaves like the Nande. We just had the flocks fly over. Eventually we were able to locate them sitting in a tree, but it was a little bit difficult to actually track them down and find them. While we were in the Florida area, we also saw blue and yellow macaws, which was a crazy thing to see because they're this iconic pet, and you think of them in, you know, the Amazon, South America. They were just hanging out in this park in Miami, just doing their thing. So there are also some populations of blue and yellow macaws. Now, as far as birders go, there's some debate on what's countable and what's not, as far as like a list, what's eBird countable, what's countable for other distinctions. So they're still kind of working it out. We'll see how it ends up. But a lot of these parrots are now countable. Next up, we have another Rio Grande Valley specialty, which is the green parakeet. And I found them to be pretty reliable in South Texas if you kind of know where to go. I think we saw them in the back of a Whataburger last time. So they're another species where you can kind of just go to the area, listen for their squawks, but they will move from location to location. But I've had them where they're just sitting in one spot, on the wires in the trees, just hanging out. They're very green with maybe a little red speckling, depends on kind of the individual bird, but they do a lot of silly antics with hanging upside down on the wires, messing around with each other, preening other birds. So they're really fun to watch, but that's a great South Texas specialty parrot. Green parakeets at Whataburger. That's how they say it down here. So in addition to the birds we talked about, here is a list of other parrot species that you can find in the United States. They've kind of moved to calling some of these species Amazons. So if you hear like red-crowned parrot or red-crowned Amazon, they're the same species, but taxonomy is moving to call some of them Amazons. Sometimes certain species like the monk parakeets are called Quaker parrots, so you may also see differences in word usage. So look up to make sure that, you know, you're talking about the same species, that things aren't getting confusing. So what do you do if you find one of these parrots? Well, the number one thing is just enjoy it. They're really fun to watch, they're really animated, and it can be a really enjoyable experience to hear and see these birds. Of course, if you're seeing like a parakeet or something that's being very friendly and it's coming up to you and it's wanting food or looks in distress, you should take it to a rehabber or something like a humane society where they can hopefully find the owner or help to treat it. But if you see these parrots loving their life out in the wild, nothing really to be done except to enjoy it. We've had a lot of experiences with these parrots in the wild, and I hope you're able to experience them too. Let me know what your favorite one was in the comments below, and thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time on Badgerland Birding.